Well, you have to get so far, 3 miles, whatever.
So he said, Shaw Grigsby. I said, who? Anyway, I knew who he was talking about. So I said, absolutely. When can this happen? So believe it or not, tonight it's happening with Shaw. However, again, be careful what you ask for. So I got double trouble tonight. I've got another elite angler pro that also came with Shaw, and it's Terry Scroggins. So I've got 2 of the guys here.
Thank you very much. I just had surgery 5 weeks ago on this shoulder, rotator cuff 90% torn. I had surgery last week on this one. And that was kind of the thing. This last week was a real booger. I couldn't hardly do anything. And so Terry offered to come down and help me out. And I went, man, I can't fish in this area. I was born and raised in Florida. So I'm a true Floridian. And I love every minute of it because I like it warm all the time.
I got one question. How many people here is actually from Florida? What I thought. That's what I thought. I'm not either, so I'm actually from Illinois. That don't sound like it, but that's where I really come from. But I live about 10 miles from Crescent Lake, and he was talking about the, I guess y'all are going to call them crappie, then we got a bunch of northerns here. Specs is what we call it nowadays down here. It is very, very good over there, and probably the best thing to do if you want to go over there is they got a great boat ramp in Crescent City, which is kind of lost no direction of where I'm at right now. I'm lost, but that's probably the closest location you can put your boat in is at Crescent City. You'll be just below Bear Island, and what you want to do is go up to the north side of Bear Island and just drift across the middle, and you should have pretty good success out there. Just drifting middle, what I do is about May, June, July, you can actually skip jigs there at the docks out there and catch 80, 90 to 100 a day. The same size, big spec. So,
4 favorite lures to fish Florida.
if we had to pick 4 lures for Florida,
Yes.
that's a tough one because where I live on the St. Johns River, where Crescent Lake is, it fishes different than anywhere else in Florida. So when you come, say if you come to the Harris chain, I would pick some kind of a trick worm, straight tail worm, a spinnerbait or chatterbait, something to flip with, being in the beaver line. Shaw's going to use a Strike King rodent, and then I would probably have some kind of topwater. I mean, I love topwater action, and in the springtime of the year, when you get to March, April, depending on the weather, we're having a cold winter this year, but February, March, April, topwater action is hard to beat, and that's a great way to catch big fish. So anywhere in Florida, I'm going to pick. I have to have something to flip with, a topwater bait. But on the St. Johns River, I got to throw some crankbaits in there and a liftless crankbait as well. So I don't know what Shaw's going to do. He's probably going to be similar.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, pretty much when I'm thinking of the lures that I throw here in Florida that you've got to have, it's mainly weeds. We fish a ton of vegetation, and you've got so much different types of it. You need baits that'll get through it. So do I throw crankbaits? Absolutely. Liftless crankbaits like a red-eye shad. Those are tremendous. And then the little crankbaits like a 1.5 or 2.5, those are, I'll put that one down, but here's a little 1.5 crankbait, little square bill, it's great. Harris chain, you'll catch them on this bait. It's really, really good, just throwing it around the eelgrass and all. And then a liftless bait, which is good anywhere in the state of Florida. If I can shake it out of here, here's probably the good one if you can have. Well, it's hung up with another one. We'll turn it upside down. So there's your liftless hanging at the bottom, right? And this is just gold. Yeah, if you can get that. They used to have the little supersonic perches, and I can't tell you how many big fish I caught on that. And you just throw it out there and reel it back. And that's all they did. Rattle trap came with one, and we had the hot spot and then rattle trap, and so now they've just really developed these where they're very, very high tech. So they're very high tech lures now, but they're basically the same thing as the old supersonic perch. But so those are good baits. You can throw them in your ponds and catch it. But overall, what Terry's talking about is the plastic worm is as good as it gets. You could swim them, and nowadays we have all these baits that have all these movable parts. They wiggle and jiggle because they have a flange on the end of it. And so if I was going to choose like one bait, I'd probably choose what's called a rage bug. And it's just a little bug. I've actually got one in the bag over here, rage bug. And everything wiggles and jiggles, but it's small, so it's compact. So now I can throw that on a light weight, like just a hook and a weight, and I can swim it in the ponds, and a fish will come and attack it. I can throw it out there, let it sink to the bottom. You can work it nice and slow on the bottom, and they'll attack it. So you have a variety of things you can do with that one bait. It's the same bait that I'll hook on to punch through the mats of the heavy vegetation to flip. Terry's talking about flipping. So I can take that one bait and probably get most of my fishing done in this
I'm
time.
gonna tell you, the best well-kept secret out there in Florida is probably a jerkbait. And a jerkbait is a technique that everybody across the country thinks of when it's cold water conditions. In Florida, it's the bomb. I mean, you go to Harris Chain, jerk it over the grass on the outside of the grass lines, down the centers of the canals. You can go to the St. Johns River, jerk it over the shell bars. You can go to Okeechobee, catch them over the eelgrass. You can go to Toho, Kissimmee, catch them over the hydrilla with it. That's a staple that you got to have in your tackle box when you come.
Do you have to be in clear water to do that?
No. A lot of times the St. Johns Rivers get the visibility is a foot and a half, and I've actually caught 100. Got it right there. They're all weighted to do that. And a lot of those other jerk baits, if you just change the hooks on them, it'll make the bait sink. So you got to be very careful. This bait here will carry the hooks good. It's got a lot of great action to it. And I think the reason it works so well in Florida is that the fish don't see it as much. It's a great bait because the fish most of the time feed going up, and if they're in the grass, buried in the grass, and the things erratic going over top of the grass, they just come up and get it. You can actually throw the jerk bait under docks, around docks, over the grass, anywhere you would throw a crankbait, you can throw a jerk bait. A jerk bait will get 6 to 8 feet deep, 10 to 12 pound test line. You can get it that deep, and it sits there in front of their face a lot longer. It's got a lot of erratic action.
Megabucks, that's what it was, megabucks, right? So I get paired for fun, and he said, "You're catching them." And I go, "Yeah." He said, "I'll meet you at your boat." So I said, "Great." He shows up with a Ziploc. A Ziploc bag was his whole tackle box. It had a couple hooks, a couple little baits in there, and he brought 2 jerk baits, and he beat me like a drum. He just caught one.
What kind of line do you use?
And that's a great question. What kind of line do we use? Most of our fishing is done with fluorocarbon line because it disappears. Now, monofilament's great, but fluorocarbon disappears in the water, you get a few more bites. But what we do, and Terry can grab his spinning rod or my spinning rod, and you'll see the same thing on it. How many guys use spinning tackle? Yes, great. Yeah, because we do that too. If you look here, Terry has braided line as his main line. But if you look on his braid is a leader of fluorocarbon. So what he does, he has one rod, one reel, braided line, when he actually probably has 3 or 4 of these, or 5 or 6.
I'll tell you a story about that.
Yeah. But anyway, he can change that leader. It can be 8-pound test, 6-pound test if he's up in Lake Michigan. It can be 12-pound test leader down here, or anything in between. All he does is tie on a leader and makes it a long leader, and now you have it. So now you, instead of paying lots of money for fluorocarbon, which fluorocarbon is expensive, but you buy a spool and it lasts you for years, okay? And it also isn't like monofilament. Monofilament, if you get it in heat, direct sunlight will break it down. Heat from shipping can break down monofilament. Fluorocarbon is almost impervious to anything. So the good thing about that, you buy a spool, it'll be good forever. You tie on this long leader, and Terry can spool it last you.
Man, that fluorocarbon, I'm gonna tell you what. There's about 2 things good about it. It's invisible and it sinks. Other than that, it costs a bunch of money. You got horrible memory. So you got to change it all the time, and it's about $28, $30 a spool. So this is why we go here on this braid with this fluorocarbon leader. You can buy 1 spool of fluorocarbon. It's going to last you for a year. Shaw gets all the line he wants. If he runs out of line, he picks up the phone and says, "I need some more line," and send it to him. I do too. I changed my braid once a year. The more you use that braid, the better it becomes.
I know. I leave the braid on until it just finally rots away.
Yeah, the braid just don't break, and it has no memory. So braid floats on top of the water. You can make a longer cast with it. Has no stretch.
Very
You
simple.
never have to change it, and you never have a bird's nest in your spinner reel like you used to have with fluorocarbon or mono. I used to hate that. And before, I don't know how many rods you carry in a boat, but I carry about 50 in my boat. When they give them to you, you carry more. That's just the way it is. I mean, if I don't have it, but since they give them to us, we carry a few more.
I keep 34 in my
All
rod
right, 34.
that I'm using, and I keep spares in my other side.
But out of the 50 that I'll carry, I'll have maybe 4 or 5 spinner rods because, to be honest with you, I kind of hate them. They're bulky. You know, the reel hangs way down off the rod and the big eyes on them. Where a regular rod that has small guides, the reels, they don't take up all this room. So the less spinner rods I carry, the better off I am. And with this one rod, with braided line and the fluorocarbon leader, I can do anything I want to do. That's a 6/8 on the length of the rod, medium action rod. With braid, you don't want a real strong rod because you got to have some give somewhere in there. If it's a strong rod with no stretch in the line, you're going to bend your hook, break your leader line, and all that good mess. So a medium action rod.
Soft plastic jerkbait, they call them flukes. This is the caffeine shad from Strike King. But there's just a flugillion of these things made. They look like little bait fish. Probably the number one way to fish this.
That's a soft jerkbait.
Soft jerkbait.
That is.
Yes. The soft one being you don't have all the treble hooks, so you can fish in a lot of grass, a lot of vegetation. It's very simple to fish in the sense that a lot of times we put a single hook, just a hook in it, and throw it out there. So like your typical 90-degree worm hook works great. And you just make a long cast with it, let it kind of shimmies down, twitch it, and it shimmies down. Next thing you know, one's swimming off with it. That's kind of how we fish it. You can let it sink all the way to the bottom, lift it gently, just shake it, shimmy it, twitch it, they hammer it. And that's the number one way to fish it. Now, one thing that we do quite often is we put a leader with a little swivel in front of it, and that keeps that from twisting your line a lot. Okay, but we talk about that twisting your line, but actually what it does is it makes it look like this bait fish is chasing something really tiny, and it gets you more strikes. Because what we do know about bass, they're very, very competitive. And in fact, all fish have to be or they don't survive. So when you have something chasing something else, and you've all seen it, if you've been on the pond or walking the banks or whatever, you see a little minnow jumping and here comes something chasing it, that gets them all excited.
The knot that I tied this last year that I think is the best, and there's all kinds of knots out there. The best one I found, Shaw and I, we fish for $100,000, and our entry fees are $5,000 when we show up, so we don't want our knot to break, so we do a lot of testing on knots. The one that I found that works the best is actually, it's a Red Phillips knot. If you was to Google it, it's called a Red Phillips knot, but I kind of improved that knot a little bit. And yeah, you can Google it and look at it. But basically what it is, you take the fluorocarbon leader. I'll talk it through if you want to do it, Shaw.
This is a Red Phillips knot for tying a monofilament leader to braided mainline. Just tie an overhand knot in the monofilament or the fluorocarbon, run the braid mainline through the knot, the overhand knot, just cinch this down, then lay the tag in, the main line of the leader, and the braid all right next to one another, and just tie a uni knot here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 times around, and then just pull the main line and it cinches this down into or onto this knot. Just pull it tight, and then you just trim off the tag ends close, and the main line here. Okay, and you get a very small knot, very small. Now, a lot of people talk about using a uni to uni, where you put the uni knot also in the leader fluoro or mono, but in reality you don't really need that, because you're just looking for something to jam up the uni that's on the main line up against it. Creates a very small knot. It keeps a very symmetrical knot, because the main line now is tied right through the center of the knot that you made in the mono or the fluoro.
But what Red Phillips did was when he did the overhand knot, he did one overhand knot. And if you use a small diameter line, what happens? That uni knot, the tighter you pull the uni knot, the harder it pulls down. But on a small line, that one overhand knot so small that the uni actually goes over. So if you pull, you can do 2 or 3 on your overhands.
Labor in the middle of the nastiest heavy cover, fishing 10-pound and 8-pound test on spinning tackle. Everybody's like, you can't land, 7, 8, 9, 10 pounders out of that stuff. And after winning 3, they're just going, well, I guess you can. So my early years were spinning tackle, but I've always used bait casters. And where I make the difference is a bait caster is a power. It's like the winch on the front of your boat, okay? It's a power reel. It's something that you put on something big and heavy and chunk it and jerk and flip it and pitching, and all that is bait cast. But there's so many different bodies of water we go to, even here in Florida, where I'll be fishing a bait caster. I come over here and I want to throw a little spinning rod, a little finesse bait, like the little fluke type bait, or I want to throw a little drop shot, which is a great technique for catching them, and it's all spinning tackle. And then I'll go to tournaments that we'll have, like up at Lake, we're going up to Lake Erie this year, and we get up to actually St. Clair. So when we go up to St. Clair, it'll be all spinning tackle. I probably won't pick up a bait caster. And so we have to, as professionals traveling the country, you can't just be one-sided. If you do that, you're going to get lost.
Major bass tournament on the Harris chain, first part of the year?
Not this year.
Not this year.
We have it on Toho, Kissimmee chain.
Yeah.
January.
The second week of January.
Yeah, like 12th, 13th, 14th, or 15th, something like that in Toho, Kissimmee. It'll actually be the north end of Toho on Kissimmee.
Site you can go to see who's going to be there.
Bassmaster.com is the website, and they'll give you a list of who's on there, who's entered in the tournament. So.
Which one of you is going to win that?
Either one of us good, I can tell you that. He's really, really good down there. And improved clinch is one that, we've taught forever. But if you double your line time, improved clinch, about 5 turns, it's a good knot on fluorocarbon. But a regular Palomar that we use for a lot of other things is not very good on fluorocarbon.
Palomar,
Thank you.
Best for braid.
Palomar is extremely good on monofilament, and best on braid is probably the a double uni.
I tie a uni on braid.
Thank you, Shaw and Terry. We appreciate you guys coming back.